All right, our second item is SR 2025-0018763, recognizing Lincoln Park Zoo and the Chicago Bird Alliance for launching the Rat Contraceptive Pilot Program. Members of the committee were sent a copy of the substitute language ahead of today's meeting. We've also provided a physical copy of the substitute resolution. No major substantive changes were made to the resolution, just the elimination of the word citywide and the final resolved clause as recommended by the Department of Law. May I have a motion to accept the substitute to bring it before us today? Alder Cruz so moves. All those in favor say aye. All right, the ayes have it. I'm going to turn the mic over to our resolutions lead sponsor, our vice chair, Timmy Knudsen.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I'm excited today to present a topic that we've thought about deeply in the 43rd Ward, and it's the topic of rat birth control. I'm going to introduce this topic, and in doing so, introduce some expert guests that we have here in the box. In a dense mixed-use community like the 43rd Ward, one issue consistently rises to the top of our inboxes, and it's rats. Residents, block clubs, local businesses are all frustrated and at times terrified of the rat situation. This is a quality of life issue that people feel every single day and is disrupted by many different things. It could be construction, it could be restaurants, and it could just be our current state and atmosphere in the city. That's the reason that I'm pleased to formally recognize our 43rd Ward Rat Contraception Pilot Program into the city record. We bring this resolution to committee today to have it fully documented, not just as an initiative between the 43rd Ward, Lincoln Park Zoo, Urban Wildlife Institute, Chicago Bird Alliance, and Streets and Sands, but as a model for what is possible across all wards in Chicago. My hope is that by continuing to elevate this work publicly, we encourage other communities to explore similar innovative pilots. And eventually, we work towards a day where abatement is done with more innovative, humane, and sustainable materials. So I've got to start by giving a big thanks to our Streets and Sands Commissioner, Cole Stollard, for being a strong partner from day one, as well as Assistant General Superintendent Gloria Pittman, who's our city's new rat czar. DSS between the commissioner and Gloria helped identify appropriate pilot blocks and has worked collaboratively with our office and the researchers. We look forward to continuing to work closely with Commissioner Stollard over the next several months as we collect and analyze the data. Overall, the city has too heavy a reliance on rodenticide that has not solved our rodent problem. This carries real risks for the birds, pets, and wildlife that are part of our lakefront ecosystem in the 43rd Ward and throughout the city. Poison is neither the most effective tool nor the right one for a community like ours. In collaboration with Commissioner Stollard in August 2025, the 43rd Ward officially launched this program with the Chicago Bird Alliance, the Lincoln Park Zoo, and other experts. Through these groups, significant independent funds were raised to power and fund this program. This approach uses contraceptive pellets that are safe for every living creature except rats. It's rat birth control. I could eat it. It wouldn't harm me. It uses over-the-counter substances. It's a method that has already been used successfully in other urban areas, such as Boston, and now we're bringing that model to Chicago. Through the pilot, 8 blocks in the southwest corner of the 43rd Ward were selected. This includes 4 treatment blocks and 4 control blocks. These locations were chosen based on rat activity, commercial activity, 311 complaints. And they are being carefully monitored by scientists and cameras on the ground so that we can actually measure the results. To me, this is what innovative government looks like. When something isn't working effectively, we don't double down on the same old remedies. We try smarter solutions, and we test, we learn, and we improve on how our government is solving everyday problems. At this time, I'd like to introduce and pass the mic, if there are any questions, to our expert partners that we have here today. We have Alyssa Berman Cutler, Senior Director of Government Affairs at the Lincoln Park Zoo, and Matt Igleski, Executive Director of the Chicago Bird Alliance. Do we have any questions for our experts?
Yeah, Vice Chair's got it.
Alderperson Lopez.
Making sure.
Yeah.
Do they have a statement that they want to give, or are they just here for questions?
Either way, do you guys may want to make a statement? That would be wonderful if you could.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, and thank you, Alderman, for inviting us here and for elevating this really important project. Here at Lincoln Park Zoo, we have over 30 scientists working on issues across conservation, and we're particularly focused through our Urban Wildlife Institute on reducing conflict between humans and wildlife. And so we look at that in Africa and think about how do we protect lions from encroachment from urban environment, and then we think about it here in Chicago. How do we get the wildlife that we want and reduce the wildlife that we don't want? We look at it from a One Health perspective in particular. We know that rats are vectors of disease. And when we think about these, how to reduce rat populations, we are really thinking from that realm. How do we make sure that people don't experience the harms of rats? And how do we make sure that wildlife doesn't experience that harm? Many of you know that we had a really terrible incident in Lincoln Park a few years ago where some really beloved birds were killed by rat poison. And so that helped us think about how do we look for new innovative solutions. As the Alderman said, how do we look at new tools in the toolbox? And we think that contraception could be one of them. Our role in the project is that scientific advisor, and so we're really proud of that. We are looking at what is the efficacy of this? We have camera traps that we are able to judge the population. We are looking at how the rat population changes. And we think there's some really promising results so far. We think we are seeing some reduction from the camera traps thus far. My scientists would say, don't get too excited. They really want to see the full data. They are being very rigorous about this, which is wonderful. And then we are also looking at how are the rats coming in and taking these pellets, and are other animals doing so? And so far we are seeing that the rats are going for them and that other animals are not. And so that's really encouraging as well. So we are really looking forward to this partnership. We are hopeful that it could be a new tool for the city of Chicago to reduce our really problematic rat issues that we've seen grow over the last few years, and are really standing by to be your scientific partners in that.
All right, yeah, so I'm Matt Igleski from Chicago Bird Alliance. Yeah, and thanks for recognizing this project. This is, I think, a really innovative project. I think it's a really great example, too, of the partnerships between government, Lincoln Park Zoo, all the nonprofits. I also want to recognize that this has been a very volunteer-driven project now on the ground. So once we, Chicago Bird Alliance's role has been raising the money, kind of, trying to, get everyone together in the same room. But then we've also really been helping with every week, someone has to go out and check those rat boxes and refill the pellets. And so that's one of our big roles right now too, is just been the sort of logistical, feeding the rats as many pellets as we can get into them, hoping that eventually we're going to start seeing that reduction in the rat population. And I just echo everything that Alyssa said, so I don't have much more to add. But yeah, happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Alyssa and Matt, for partnership on this project, but also everything else that your organizations do in the city. So with that, do we have any questions? Alderperson Lopez. Yeah.
Thank you again, Vice Chairman. So this program, has it begun, is ongoing?
Yep, this program has begun. It really started in August 2025, and our experts can probably go more into this, but it takes around a year to collect a full data sample because of, the pellets need to be ingested, they need to go through a mating cycle, and contraceptive takes time.
Don't we know it? So we have about 5 months that we've been able to monitor this so far, correct? And my understanding is that rats with their industrious reproductive system can literally crank out litters in roughly, is it a 6-week time frame? Roughly?
Yeah, it's pretty short. Yeah,
So-
yeah. They can have up to like a
2 litters simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yes. Remarkable animals. So in the 5 months that we've been doing this, and I think all of us can agree, the rodent issue in Chicago seems to be getting worse. I just yesterday did a post unrelated to this where I've said that I've seen a 19% increase year over year in rodent calls in the 15th Ward. What impact does enforcement have on this? Because while I appreciate the efforts to find more targeted approaches at dealing with rodent abatement, because we don't want to kill all the life in our city with our poison. Was there also increased in streets and sand enforcement? Was there a dumpster task force that went out? Was there cart replacement in this eight block pilot zone? What else was a part of this? Or was it strictly just the rodent contraception?
Yeah, and I'll go to the experts on this. I will start by saying the reason we looked at specific blocks early on with streets and sands and chose some over others is we couldn't choose any blocks that, for example, had private abatement required, like our restaurant blocks. A lot of our restaurant groups, we have agreements with them that require separate private abatement, and wanted to make sure that DSS had a good understanding. They're staying away from the experiment blocks. And with that, I want to pass to the experts just to answer a little bit more.
Yeah. We know that enforcement is a really important tool. And so when we look at our Chicago Rat Project, we are talking to people all the time about how do you make sure that you're not having garbage out? How do you keep your community gardens clean? All of that. For this purpose, because it really is about having an experimental situation, we didn't want to put those additional things in place. Sorry. Thanks, Alder. We wanted to make sure that we were looking specifically at how is this effective, and so wouldn't want to have that kind of a task force on these blocks.
Okay. So then the only difference was the nature of the poison. Got it.
Yep.
In your own, was this entirely in your ward?
Yes.
Was there a reduction in calls of service for rodent abatement over the last 5 months? Are you aware?
During the time? No, it's around the same.
Okay. And then what is the cost for this? I know there was a reference to costs.
Sure.
So
Yeah, so Chicago Bird Alliance, we raised the donations. It was about $34,000 total to do the full year pilot, and that includes, the equipment, the pellets, everything else that goes along, associated costs with that.
but that doesn't include man hours, correct?
That doesn't, yeah, because we're doing it as a volunteer study right now. Yeah, so, right.
So if you were to factor in how many man hours worked on a weekly basis, would you say, for filling of those?
Yeah, I mean, just for filling up the boxes, it does not take very long. Like an hour and a half. Yeah, to refill.
All 8 blocks?
All 20. Yeah, all 20 boxes. Yep. And all the alleys. Yep.
So I think well, first off, I just want to commend you guys on trying to find something innovative, and to you, our colleague. My questions are just meant to try to figure out, like, if we're looking for things that are different, we have to know how to scale up. And it's the cost, $34,000 for 8 blocks in a city of 8,000 blocks. My brain can't do the math right now.
Well,
Not
and
enough
I
coffee.
think, and I do want to note, when we look at it as, say, and again, I'm trying to think 5-10 years ahead, say this pilot works and we do some add-on pilots and they keep working and we do shift out the materials. The materials are at scale are actually cheaper
Right,
than
obviously.
rodenticide, right? And so a beautiful thing about this in talking with Streets and Sands is that, there's a fear with some of these innovative programs that, it will require less people because it potentially could, right? Or someone loses their job. It wouldn't. It would just be switching out the materials we use for rat abatement if we get to that point far down the line where the data proves that this would be an impactful strategy for the whole city.
If we got to a point, Alderman, where we were putting rodent abaters out of work, we could always put them back into the tree trimming service. I'm sure we could find something for them to do in the city of Chicago.
Work smarter, not harder.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All right, Alderperson Conway.
I first will say, I don't know if this program was used at Oz Park, but I will tell you, I coach my daughter's soccer team at Oz Park, and I want to really thank you for the work that you've done in cleaning up that whole park, which had a huge rat problem that got a lot of news. By the way, also as another lesson, don't sign your child up late for soccer because you might find yourself coaching the soccer team in penalty, for what it's worth. But my question was about expansion, building on Alderman Lopez. So I know we've only done it for 5 months, so it's maybe perhaps not looking beyond that. But I have huge problems with ghost kitchens downtown in the 34th Ward, And believe me, I got Department of Finance getting after them about their dumpsters, but it's huge rat problems that can really expand from there. And one, I would ask, is this something that you think would be helpful to that? Presumably, yes. But then also, when do you think it's going to be ready to expand beyond the test area, the pilot area?
Yeah, no, and they're good questions. And I think that when we look at this pilot, we're giving it the whole year, because when they show the results from Boston and some neighborhoods in New York City, you start to see the impact, the rat population going down around months 6 to the 8,
Oh,
6
right,
to 8.
okay.
And then they go down drastically after that. You know, never say never, right? But it doesn't get rid of every rat in the whole city. Boston and New York, in neighborhoods in New York that are using it, it's not scaled in New York yet. They still do have rats, but it doesn't go to zero. It's just more manageable. And it absolutely is intended to help with those issues. Even though our wards, of course, look different, like all do, I have a certain amount of density that really adds to the amount of trash in small areas. And in certain areas like around Oz Park that you mentioned, there's a very high number of rats that we've been working on hard. And I think, you know, we have to make those calls to our businesses all the time. Every time a new business comes in, I'm negotiating these plans of operations to require daily garbage, private abatement, always making calls about it. And it's just, you know, in these urban dense areas, a lot of things interact all at once. Kids playing, businesses businessing, residents living. So we're trying to just reduce that.
No, that's great. I obviously have several, I mean, I have a even denser ward than yours. So believe me, I have these problems, and I want to thank you for an outside the box idea along with my colleagues. So thank you very much.
Yep. And I'll give actually just another compliment to Department of Streets and Sands, because the Oz Park situation that Alderperson Conway mentioned, we were told at the time of this playground renovation, it was the most visited, most popular, busy playground in the city. It potentially had one of the largest rat beds in the city under the playground. And it was because of the ground material they were using, the turf, that this is an old playground. It was wood, right? The turf it was under it hadn't been replaced in years and years. So we knew when we went to tear this all out, the playground, this largest rat area in the city, they were all going to scurry, right? When you tear up a material that this whole world's living under, they all scurry. So the Department of Streets and Sands, it was really like a mission at 4 a.m. They went out there while it was still dark, because the light aggravates the rats, tore it all out. And I mean, it's the ugly truth is kind of hosed rodenticide over the population and really controlled that massive population of rats going far out into our neighborhood in a park that hosts a lot of activities every single day. It was a disgusting experience where I learned quite a bit about rats in the city.
Well, clearly it worked. And yeah, I'm picturing like that scene in Indiana Jones when he's going down to get the Ark of the Covenant, or early on in Last Crusade. That's what I'm picturing there. But whatever you did, it worked. And as a parent who uses that park, I give you my personal gratitude on that.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderperson Espada.
This meeting has everything, and I'm totally here for it. I totally feel like we're in middle school science class right now, and like we're at the science fair, and you're giving your presentation, and like we're very much in the data and observations part of like your poster board that you've put up. What, really, you know, it's
Note to
fantastic.
self, I'm going to start requiring trifold poster boards for all presenters.
I love it. And I'm like very glad that I have not had lunch yet when you're talking about like the digging up of Oz Park scene. Loving it. And it sounds like when we're talking about this, a lot of the upfront cost is actually like the capital costs of like getting this project up and running. Is that like an accurate description?
Matt.
I mean, yeah, the upfront cost, yes, because we had to buy the boxes, you know, so the boxes are specially designed by the nonprofit that we work with, Wisdom Goodworks, to try to exclude anything else from getting in there. So the whole point is to really target the rats. So those are specially designed boxes. So yeah, that was a big part of the upfront cost. I couldn't tell you exactly like per bucket, you know, how much it costs. But yeah, now we're just into the phase where all we're doing is distributing pellets. So that's all that really is, you know, probably just that 1-for-1 exchange for rodenticide to pellets would be all the costs you'd probably be looking at once you, plus the labor.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I
Yeah.
think the efforts that you're making to avoid confounding variables, so to speak, of like
Mhm.
not testing a bunch of things at once.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Like whether it's a briefing or a follow-up hearing, I hope we get to hear like the final results.
Mhm.
I know that SSA 33 up in like Wicker Park, Bucktown, doing something similar. I don't know. What fascinates me here is the rigor in the experimentation here.
Right.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the whole point, right? The way that we set this up was to make sure that like we can prove yes, it works, or maybe, you know, we don't want it to not work, but the whole idea is to like really show that these are provable results either way, which is why, you know, having a great partner like the Urban Wildlife Institute, which I just want to also make people aware, they've done other studies in the city with rodenticide testing on non-target animals, right? So like foxes, raccoons, possums, everything has rodenticide in it. So rodenticide's getting into all these other animals that we know in the city, which is another reason why we wanted to, you know, explore these other options. You know, not only because the owls died, but because we know it's getting out into the environment and it's getting into these other animals. So we really want to see like, does this work or not? And then be able to come back and tell you guys, hopefully in several months, that it does.
Yeah, the way it works itself up the food chain.
Mhm.
I like one last question. It's a bit tangential, but the Rat Project at Lincoln Park Zoo is not a new initiative. You all have been doing urban research on rat populations for a while, and I wondered if you would want to share a little bit of that work with the committee.
Sure. Yes, our Chicago Rat Project works on, as we talked about a little bit, how do we minimize human interaction with rats? How do we minimize those health impacts? And we have looked at how does it work its way up to the food chain? How do we look at the inequities around rat abatement around the city? Is it just about, you know, how do the loudest voices come in, and how do we come in and try to mitigate against that? And then, like I said, looking at what are the interventions that we can do and that are pretty inexpensive and easy, and that we can communicate better around rats. How do we make sure that people understand how to keep garbage away from the rats? How do we make sure that community gardens are really healthy and aren't being attractive to rats? We know there's ways that they can be managed so that they are not attractive to rats. And so that's really helpful and gets away from that conversation and that. And we are really looking forward to working with any of you who would like that in your communities. So please reach out. Chicago Rat Project is ongoing. We also famously weighed in on whether the famous rat hole was indeed a rat or a squirrel. And in the end, we did learn that it was a squirrel. So we can have scientific experts on that as well.
Let me say, any research you can provide through the chair on successful non-rodenticide interventions would be really valuable. But thank you so much. Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm genuinely loving all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderperson. Any other questions? Yeah, Alderperson Lawson.
Thank you, Alder Knudsen. If you send any of these rats north of Diversity, we're going to have a problem. I want to put that on the record. We are neighbors. We have neighborhoods that look very similar. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing. And I look forward to being able to expand this program. When you picked the area, is it all city pickup? Is it private pickup? And was that a factor in where the area you chose? Obviously, the businesses are private.
Yeah, and I'll go to Matt because I think it's all city pickup. But what I would say before we go to Matt is that we did consider a few blocks that we thought would be fascinating to see how they all interact. And we realized it just wasn't going to work. And those blocks are the ones that end up having a real tricky rat problem because there's restaurants on one side of the alley and there's houses on the other side of the alley. We found for this pilot, it was going to be too chaotic because there were too many third parties that were engaging with the rats on the block. Matt, anything you'd add?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, yeah, it's primarily city pickup, I think, in these alleys. And then the other thing I will say is that we didn't really do much. I don't think the enforcement changed, but we did make sure that all the, I think, bins that had holes and things in them were replaced so that at least that was like not a factor in terms of allowing the rats to go and feed somewhere else. But yeah, pretty much all city pickup, I think.
Yep.
And it's under the CTA line, part like one alley is.
One alley is.
Right. No rats under the CTA.
Yeah, well, and there, yeah, exactly.
You learn a lot about rats doing this job, and I know that. I was just chatting with my colleague. Right, a female rat can give birth 8 times a year. She's always pregnant.
Basically, yeah.
And so right, they are prolific reproducers, and so I appreciate this innovative strategy. I think the other question I have, it always comes up about the dogs, right? And I'm assuming dogs are part of the group of animals that you've also seen rodenticide in, but with differing results. The new product is dog safe,
Yep,
and they're not attracted to it in any way.
No, yeah, they can't even get to the pellets, so that's
Right.
already not an issue. Like at least at the bait box that we have, or the pellet box. And then there isn't that secondary poisoning by like a dog, because we've talked to dog owners while we're out like filling these boxes, and they are concerned because if their dog gets a rat, it's generally because it's been poisoned. It can't
Right.
run away.
Out during the day.
So that is something that I know that the vets and things have also, expressed concern about is that secondary poisoning from dogs getting to the rats themselves that have been poisoned. So it does not work its way through that chain either. So it is safe that,
Right.
and this product.
Yeah, and
Right.
what I would add to that too, in addition to the, the canisters just being only rats can get in it, the ingredients within the pellets taste like peanut butter.
Mhm.
The ingredients within because we need the rats coming back, right? We need them interested.
Right.
The ingredients you can get over the counter. It's a really random list. Wisdom Good Works, the nonprofit that we mentioned that supplies the ingredients on this, kind of went through it. There's like an over-the-counter arthritis medicine.
Yeah.
They sent me a sample. I may or may not have tried it. And it's just, it's, it's important to state that this is so, it's been tested on species. It only works on rats. It is safe. My only point in trying it or not trying it in my office is to show that it is safe, because we're invested in this experiment.
Sounds like another viral TikTok video.
Oh,
Timmy.
okay.
Say-
Yeah,
Right.
this one
Just saying.
was vetoed. So
But I was like, did you require your staff to take it? So maybe
no,
maybe there's
no,
an IGA component.
no.
Okay, all right, good.
but this is the most humane way,
Right.
and that it doesn't harm other animals. It was heartbreaking when the 2 owls died from traces of rodenticide. So that is why I think, and Matt could comment on this, the Chicago Bird Alliance raised this money relatively quickly. It's clear that there's a population that is very concerned about the bird population. And then, of course, with this, most Chicagoans don't like rats. So it's a good 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah.
Would you comment on the fundraising process a bit, just in case anyone is interested in how that went?
Yeah, I mean, really, to credit, it was our board president last year who really went out and kind of beat the bushes and got the campaign started and brought together all the groups. And so I know we had a few, especially residents in that Lincoln Park neighborhood, that were really excited to try something. And so they made some relatively big donations, but we ran all the whole campaign was through our organization and on our website. But yeah, it probably one of our most successful, quickestly, funded campaigns we've had out there. Yeah.
Great. I think just 2 more quick questions then. Who you mentioned, obviously we have the zoo and the Urban Wildlife Institute, Chicago Bird Alliance, the supplier again, and who are the other partners in this?
Yeah. Wisdom Good Works is the nonprofit that produces the pellets, and so they've been doing these pilots throughout the country already in a few different areas. I think you were mentioning that there's another neighborhood. They used a completely different product that isn't being as like rigorously tested. So there are other products out there, but this is the group we're working with because they're also invested in the infrastructure to collect the data, to help like plan out the volunteer schedule, all that stuff. So that's why Wisdom Good Works was a good partner to be in this pilot. And then of course the city and then the Department of Streets and Sands and the Alderman's office have all been partners. So we've all been working together.
Great. And last question, I promise. Is there anything equivalent for pigeons?
But why? Pigeons are cool. They're birds.
Out of the Belmont Owl, they're not. And I know we have some great peregrine falcons nesting in Lakeview now that love the pigeons, but I certainly don't want, we have pigeons are as bad as rats in a lot of places, right? Maybe not as disease ridden, but bad. And one, can cause all sorts of health problems once they take over. And it's come up in a lot of neighborhoods of the city. So I would love to see if there's other options to deal with all the vermin that we have in Chicago. So thank you all. Thank you all for the work.
I'm going to chime in here. The question, mainly for the Urban Wildlife Institute, a question around rat behavior. But first, I want to say, for the pigeons, we could give them jobs. Have you guys seen this New York cannabis company called the Travel Agency? And they've started training pigeons again to do carrier pigeon work. And they deliver your cannabis in little red backpacks all over the city. So, jobs. Just saying, we could put pigeons to work. Um, um, I'm curious, and this is I want to thank Vice Chair for bringing this forward. I know zero about pesticides, effectiveness, whatever. Just what I learned passively through our jobs. Um, most of my rat issues, I mean, we're a dense area too. We have a lot of restaurants, but actually most of my rat complaints are not necessarily connected to my commercial areas. We also have a lot of trees. We have a lot of food for rats that doesn't just come from people's dumpsters. So, we actually just had a tree come down on the corner by our office because the root system had been completely eaten by hungry rats. Yeah, no, they're vicious. We have like a Rats of Nim situation going on underneath Ashland Avenue also. Um, the current pesticide that we're using with the city, in any of your studies, have you found that it's losing effectiveness?
Well, so yeah, I mean, this is kind of a complicated question, and I don't know a lot about it, but it has lost effectiveness already. So there's already right now this sort of like extra strength rodenticide that has been used basically. So that's generally what's already being used in a lot of these places is this already like extra strength rodenticide, which they already are seeing obviously not being as effective already with certain populations of rodents, especially because they reproduce so quickly. The resistance to these these rodenticides can be built up pretty fast in a relatively short amount of time. So yeah, we're already on the second generation of lethality in these rodenticides. And so that's, I think, the other sort of unsustainable part of this whole piece is that we can see that kind of coming down the pike that you're just going to have to keep upping that lethality if we're going to continue to try to control the rats like the way we're doing it now.
Thank you. And I'll just say again, I think Alder Laspada mentioned, Alder Lopez, how many years are you in office? 11. So represented here, we've got, we've got 11. Some of us have been in for like 7, right? 6.5. And I do think every year it seems like the rat population seems to be going up and the rat problem's getting worse. And one of the observations in our ward has been also, as we talk about climate change in our earlier topic, having winters that aren't as reliably cold or with longer freezes also have an impact on how well the rats are able to reproduce, right? So just saying, in my short time in office, the observation is there, right? And we've got our streets and sand on baiting and abatement is great. I think I have no notes on what they can do. I feel like they're doing a fantastic job. We get specific areas. We have not as much construction as some of my colleagues' wards. When we do have major construction projects, we have big plans and abatement in place. Like, I feel like we're doing the things and the rats are winning. And so I just want to lift this up as well, that we can't wait for our solutions, like they're already not working. The process we're using is not working, and it's not because of a lack of effort or strategy or knowledge, but because of a few different factors that are outside of our control, right? Climate, lack of, diminishing efficacy, right, of the particular poison that we're using. And so I appreciate this pilot. Want to look at how we can support. Definitely, we want to have you guys back in another 6 months after it's completed to hear the results, because I do think it's in the best interest of this body and our city to be looking at what are some of the other solutions we can use, either as a layered approach or as something that we transition to that's going to be more effective and have longer term benefits and be sustainable. So appreciate, Vice Chair, you bringing this forth and the work that you guys have done to pilot this. Lopez.
Sorry, Chairman, I just wanted to throw this out here too. In 6 months,
Yeah.
can we invite the department back as well?
Yeah.
Because I think that it would be great, depending on what we learn from this experiment. To your point, if we have a new menu of options, because I know we've talked about in the past, not only this, we've talked about the dry ice,
Yep.
which we did at one point.
Yep.
We've talked about the feral cat colonies as well,
Yep.
all these alternative poison methods to do this. So maybe they can start coming up with, in 6 months, what a menu of options are for communities that choose to engage in something other than poisoning, as well as their enforcement efforts as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and thank you. Yeah, we can do that. And that's what my chief of staff was over here writing about, the carbon monoxide dry ice piece. Yeah. Alder Cruz.
Chairwoman, real quick question, but I do want to say that we're always learning something new every day, and that includes rats. But I have a quick question. I know this is in the 43rd ward, I rather say. I'm just curious of what we didn't try 2 to 3 different wards just to make the comparison. Is there a reason why? I just want to make sure that we could compare. Every neighborhood could be different, the area could be different, at least 2 to 3.
Yeah, and what I would say too, this, because of the grassroots nature of how this came about, we really met with the Chicago Bird Alliance early on and started talking about this. We then had, iterations of calls with the Wisdom Good Works, the zoo and the experts. This is a step of phase 1. I do believe that there will be a phase 2, right? To check that it works at scale outside and also to compare contrast, like you're saying. I think right now we're just still in that initial phase.
Yeah, and like Alderman Lopez said, probably bring us street and sanitation next time, and based on that, maybe we can expand the pilot, and maybe the city can play a role into the cost.
Yes, and that's an important thing. I am really glad that other areas have been trying innovative approaches, like was mentioned through an SSA. It was very important for us to bring streets and sands into this project because this is only going to work one day if it works with streets and sands, right? And Commissioner Stollard has always been very innovative, and he's been just a good brainstorm partner on innovative strategies. So bringing them to the table on this project is something we need to keep on when we scale it.
I agree.
Yep.
All right, good work. Thank you.
Thanks for.
Yeah, Alderman Hoppenworth.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair, for bringing this forward. And thank you to Chicago Bird Alliance and the Lincoln Park Zoo for being here. My neighbors, they have tried dry ice on their own, and I am along the Red Line, and we had that major reconstruction on the Red Line. And so our public school is right there. And there's a little patch of land that they tried to create a garden. And the kids were just too scared because the rats kept jumping out of the garden. So now they're thinking about paving it over.
That's a rat play area. What do we call the dog-friendly area, rat-friendly area?
Yes, yes. So thank you for bringing this forward. And I look forward to more conversations with Streets and Sand also later on. But my question was, can you talk a little bit, or can somebody just talk about what is the baseline here? Is it 311 calls? Or is it like sightings or droppings, or what's the baseline? And then what is going to be your measurement of success in 6 months?
Yeah, and that is where it will be great when we have Streets and Sands here, because we did pick blocks that had very high 311 requests for rat abatement. And once we have that final report in the end, we will be able to do that data, compare, contrast year over year, because 311 stores all of this. So we can organize and provide more information even before that next meeting, but just so that you have a kind of data set that we'll be comparing to.
Great. Thank you. And then thank you for the information that you will send through the chair about the Chicago Rat Project. We have a lot of small businesses too in the 48th Ward and also along the lakefront with open patios, and there's an issue, people want to be outside, but they don't want to spend time with rats. So is there anything that businesses can start to do now in preparation for spring and summer? Any information that you could share with us would be really appreciated.
Great. And you know what we'll do? We will share some information through Streets and Sands, because every time I speak with them, they say any technique we use will be made successful through our residents, our businesses behaving, through proper garbage strategy and making sure that nothing overflows from the garbage cans. Just these kind of common day-to-day things that every constituent can and should be doing that would reduce the rat population. So we'll get some material. I know they have it in a good organized visual form, and we can send that out.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, Alderperson.
I want to thank our vice chair, and may I have a motion to recommend approval of SR 2025-0018763. So moved by Alderman Hoppenworth. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and I'll report this vote as a recommendation to pass at our next city council meeting on February 18th, 2026. Having no more questions. All right, Alder Lopez, motion to adjourn. All in favor? All right, hearing no objections, so ordered. The meeting on Committee on Environmental Protection and Energy is now adjourned.